Hi there, my fencing teists. So the next stance is going to be the most traditional of the Western fencing stances, called the back stance, the rear stance, rearward guard, or most commonly the Italian guard, because this was highly favored in Italian fencing, though it did eventually get to Scottish broadsword, the German school. It was known throughout, but it was mainly codified in the Italian form. All it is you take your preparatory position, whether it's inside or outside the foot, and then you shift all your weight onto your rear foot and extend the foot forward. You can keep it in line. That helps with blading. You can see that it naturally has bladed my body. If you're going from the nadi position, you step out and the hips are naturally at an angle, so the rear shoulder is going to be a little more forward, and you'll need to compensate with the rear hand. Traditionally, they bring the hand up and over the head, and that helps blade. From the side, if I'm in my nadi position and I shift back and put the hip forward, you can see that I have a little bit of slant, and when I bring the hand up, it brings me square. And that is again for that blading position. This is the most traditional Italian stance, at least with regards to modern small sword and foil fencing. And this was properly because hey, I don't have a weapon, I am fighting you honorably, you can see my other hand, but also that if they were going to use another weapon, that put the other weapon in a very distinct overhand striking position, which could be very threatening. It's often called la scorpettata, or the scorpion pose or scorpion position. That was very common in Italian fencing. Goes all the way back to Agrippa at the very least. It may go back even further into Dardi, but at the very least, Agrippa specifically notes it. So that was already known by the time that point and line fencing was established. And it might have been a uniquely Italian thing, I don't know, but it's entirely likely. The position of the rear leg means that since all your weight is back, you have a lot of coiled pressure, and the big weakness of it is that you're going to wear out your leg pretty quickly if you don't practice it. So I do suggest practicing, just seeing how long you can sit in this stance. It should be relatively relaxed. You should just let your weight sink onto the rear foot, but don't have it so that you can easily lift up your foot. You want to push it forward just a little bit so that if need be, you can push off the lead leg and retreat. So you do want some weight on the lead leg. I'd say 70-30. Think about it like that. You do want to keep the leg bent a little. You don't want to have it straight, especially not locked. If you want to keep it straight just for extra weight to the back, let it come up naturally. That would be ideal. A little bend, I would say, is better so that you can push off, have a little bit of bounce forward and back. The coiling in the back allows you to really spring forward, whereas if you have your weight equidistant, there's not quite as much spring, just because of the amount of weight on the leg. The biggest advantage of this is that it creates extra distance that the opponent has to cross. So if I'm here in my French guard and then I shift into the Italian guard, you can see it moves me back quite a bit. And if you're here and then you shift back into the Italian stance, that means that the attacks that would have hit you when you were here are now going to miss. Another point is that you then can also take advantage of that by shifting forward. You can see I'm relatively far away. I don't look like I'm that much of a threat. I'm out of range. Now I'm notably closer, shifting forward. And shifting back and forward like this is something that you don't see in a lot of modern fencing in most cases, because they're always on the balls of their feet. They have their weight pretty equidistant. That is one method, but I don't think that necessarily works in the classical sense, especially on uneven ground. It works on an artificially produced piste, but anywhere where you have uncertain footing, having a stable base with both heels and both balls of the feet on the ground is, I'd say, more practical. But that shifting was, at one point, very practical and very common. at least as what I've been told by the generations of teachers that I knew before they started the whole bouncing thing. There was a lot of swaying and rocking, and they'd be, oh, I'm going to step back and create even more distance, and now I'm taking that back by leaning forward. I'm going to advance slowly. Oh, no, that was a little too close for me. And they'd use that as their first line of defense. And I'll cover that a bit more when I cover measure, but these types of little measure games and tempo games are key to old Italian fencing. I would say that while the French took it and ran with it with regards to angles and tempo, I would say that those originated in the Italian form, and those fundamentals are still found in this stance. So this stance is going to be playing with that measure. It's going to be, you can't quite hit me as well as you think, and now I can hit you. You might be able to hit me, now you can't. And playing with that, I'd say, is an important fencing concept. So take your stance and go between having your feet spread equal 50-50, and then shifting back, and then shifting back to the middle, and shifting back, and then just shifting back and seeing how long you can hold it. Because it's not going to be easy, it's rough on everyone, but if you can get it, it has some major benefits. All right, we will cover the last two stances soon. Until then, keep your teacups up.